Right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome the presenter for the session, Derek Moore from Web Learning. So, our presenters, please, you have 40 minutes for a presentation. Please introduce yourself and you may go ahead. Thank you once again, Derek.
Thanks, Donald. Much appreciated. Nice to be here. Just seeing if my slides are shareable, and there we are. Donald, just checking. Is that up and live?
Yes.
Okay. Greetings all. Hello. Welcome. It's nice to be with you. I am very aware that I have been given the graveyard shift, and very aware that there are many of you who probably have got many other things that you would like to be doing, and are perhaps trying to multitask at things. And so if you would like a copy of this presentation, you need to dash off, please. You'll see that I've sent this presentation in a PowerPoint file separately, and you're welcome to check it out there. But if you stay with me, I'm hoping that this is going to be a spot where we're going to have the opportunity to maybe share a couple of ideas around what I see as a need for a professional association for third space professionals. Just a quick introduction. My name is Derek. I run a very small consultancy. It's me, and I work in the back garden. I have been doing this for a couple of years. I started it in about 2002 when I came back from England. I took a small hiatus from it when I worked for WITS, and now I'm back. I'm doing my thing. Yeah, that's me. If you want to find out about me, Google Web Learning, and you'll find hopefully a little bit of my digital footprint. Okay. So by the end of this, the last 2 days, I've been wondering a little bit about what your strategic starfish is looking like. And perhaps you've been thinking after watching some of the slides and some of the people and the presentations here, you've been thinking, wow, I'd like to keep doing some things. I'd like to do more of certain things. I'd like to do less of. I'd like to start, and I'd like to stop. If we had a long session, I think it would be quite fun to take some of what you've heard at this workshop and decided to put it into practice, or decide not to put things into practice. I mean, I think one of the dangers of these spaces that we're in is we try to do too much, and maybe doing less of and stop doing or minusing is a good way for us actually to get some sanity. I'm not going to focus on keep doing, stop doing, more of, less of, and start doing. I want us to be able to take a global perspective and think a little bit more about the place where we are doing our doing, our universities. And I'd like to suggest that there are perhaps problems with the way that instructional designers think and their alignment with the way the university conceptualizes itself. Now, if this was a public slide, it would be shocking because my 3 little images are terribly, my text is terribly small. It's I think only 12 points. Because we're behind our screens, you'll see that the plugs have 3 names on. One is a university that is seen as an ivory tower. One is a university that is seen as a factory, and the other is a university that is seen as a network. and it's just a piece by Adam Matthews, where he was trying to kind of, I think, just help us maybe be a bit provocative, but think about how do we conceptualize the universities and the places we work in. And this might become obvious later as to why I'm focusing on it. But ivory tower is that old Enlightenment idea of an elite group of scholars researching and producing their work, often cut off from the rest of the world, but that was by design. The factory is the massification of education, where we no longer just including the elites, but many people want to go to university, and many people are let in. Because of the scale, we sometimes don't run things as close and personal as we'd like, and it's a bit like a factory. Or else there's the third version of university work, which is the network, where we actually see ourselves part of a remote or distributed or hybrid or whatever latest word you want to put to it. We're actually working in a range of different spaces and places and times, and all of the above. I think many of you maybe find yourself in spaces, one of these three spaces, or actually find yourself straddling all three spaces, trying to do your work as an instructional designer. Or what my term I've used as an instructional designer or ed techie, I've used the term a third space professional. And really, it's a word that Celia Whitchurch wrote in 2008. I like it because it just captures the multiple roles that we do without saying one is better than the other, because otherwise we get caught up in these funny debates as to what we do. So how do we work in our universities that are either structured as Mode 1, which is an organization that is elite, that's research focused, Mode 2, thanks, Tony. I like those metaphors, and I will come to an ecosystem. Yes, this is my ego system, because this is how I saw universities initially. Is I saw my part in it as possibly a person working maybe an elite environment, and not really able to translate my thinking into factory environments, or into a networked environment. And my ego system, yeah, it's kind. It's a funny system. I wouldn't recommend it. It keeps me up late at night and working far too hard. That's the kind of approach that I saw my work as, is trying to do things to make things work. I really do think that as I worked longer hours and harder hours, and I think many of you here possibly have had a similar experience, you find that the problems don't subside; they just get worse and worse. And I've been wondering, perhaps the problem is my metaphor of thinking, and instead of ecosystems thinking, I need to kind of change to ecosystems thinking. And this is really just a silly representation of some of the parts of the ecosystem, whether it be staff training or students, or the different modalities or different devices and policies, and different literacies. But I mean, all of these things are things that we deal with all the time, and trying to deal with them in a factory and perhaps in a global network really does become quite a big challenge. So if we were to simply picture this, I've been trying to think of the ways that we sometimes work. Okay, and if you look at the bottom right, you'll see a wicked problem. Now, I'm not going to define what the wicked problem is, but we're constantly facing situations where we want to use technology and education together, but we're struggling, and so we find and see a new product or service, and we try it and we pilot it, and sometimes we actually even make it to campus. And this seems like a really nice, simple solution, and we sell it off to management, and we think, oh, we've done it. We've solved our problem. However, reality is, and this is another form of the iceberg model, but it's more chaotic than the iceberg model. It's the recursive chaos model of Derek Moore. And the reality is, all of this is happening down below because we saw the problem, we suggested a solution, we tried it a few people, it seemed to work, but when we rolled it out on a big scale, it was a little bit more hectic than we thought it was going to be. At least that's been my experience. So one of the things that distress me is when I see presentations about the future of higher education, and some of the imaginaries that get shared, I find myself shivering in horror because of, I think, all the unanticipated issues that are there. And this dystopian video that I'm going to share you in the chat, or else you can scan the QR code, or else you can go straight to the URL on the screen. Dystopian video that is there shows a picture of not the university, but what I think might be the reality if we just let some of the people who think they know about education run away with some of their technology solutions. I'm wondering, do you want to watch it? Please, can you tell me that in the chat, or would you like to watch it later? It's funny. It's quite disturbing as well. Would you want to watch it? If you do, please say yes. Okay. Paul, I see your responses. Tabasile, thanks so much for your responses as well. Cool. Christine, let's see what it is. Disturbing on a Friday afternoon. Yes. Yeah. So if you want to check this video out, I will suggest that you click on it separately, and I will let you control the sound, because the sound can be overwhelming. Okay, if you find it overwhelming, just turn down the volume, and then I think you'll be fine. As you're looking at the video, what I want you to do is I want you to be asking questions like, are my online classes anything like this hyperreality? Is this my experience of third space? What features in this video can I identify as true of some of my ICTE teaching? Okay, so click on it and take a look, and we'll get back in 6 minutes' time. Go for it. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry to have tormented you with that, but wasn't it information overload? And if you have the sound on loud, it actually is quite something. And this is not something that I am advocating at all. I'm probably trying to just hopefully inoculate us against something like this. It does worry me that sometimes when I try and explain online learning to my mother or to some of my colleagues, this is the impression that they have in their mind, and this is, I think, why I think we need to be thinking about how are we selling ourselves as third space professionals. What are some of the things that we offer or can say, this is what we do? Me, the reason why an association of third space professionals is necessary, and perhaps it can't just come from one university, is because that one university is just focused on its mode, whether it's factory or research or on the network. And I think we need something that stands above all three. So I'm going to ask you to just take a breath from that video and to say, we are not doing that. Let's wish it away, okay? And let's say what we are doing is we are being thoroughly human. Okay, and this is a rhetorical question. We need a third space for third space professionals. I'm going to say one reason why for it is because there's this, call it a social technical imaginary that gets created about the future. That STI is, I think, being driven by a range of different interests. I don't think they're necessarily educational interests. And I think an association of third space professionals would actually be driving that forward. So my second reason for talking about the need for a third place professional is my story. I mean, the reason why I'm sitting here in my office and not at a university is because I was at a university, and the direction that the university I thought was going in suddenly shifted. And I found myself, well, to be frank, out of a job. It wasn't fun. It wasn't very happy, and it's taken me quite a long time to recover from that. And I don't think I have fully. I have been asking myself, what could a group or an alliance or an association of third space professionals have done to assist through that kind of situation? And I'll give you an example. So what I find very interesting is I think the amount of power that we have in universities sometimes is quite frightening. I think sometimes the things we see also are a little bit worrying. I think there are some times when we see things going wrong, we can't say anything. The reason why we can't say is because we don't have the association behind us. Academics have academic freedom, but people who work in our space don't. And so it gets, say, a little bit worrying when you see wrong things happening. And it's far easier to throw out the ed techie than to actually address the problem that they're pointing out. Okay, so once I left Wits, I had to, and the reason why I've got that black kind of tear thing, it was a rupture event for me, and I had to rethink about how I was going to work. And one of the things that I decided was, okay, I want to see if I can marry my heart and my brain together, and find ways in which I can do authentic work. I got lucky because it meant that I actually didn't have to do all those high pressure things that we saw on that video. Could actually just take things one step at a time. I got to work on projects that did allow me to marry my heart and head, and also meet and work with people who were able to marry the two. And so I started to think that grand, what actually mattered more was small steps, not major solutions to problems, but just small little steps that I could actually show my expertise, my ability or inability to people. And so there were a few things that I started, things like routine for myself. On Mondays, I practice something called Makeover Monday. And on Makeover Monday, I say, okay, what is something that I've done that I think I could do better? And focus on that thing. On Fridays, I do something called Folio Friday, and I try update my portfolio of work on my website. And sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. But the point is, it's a pattern that I'm developing that I think maybe we could find a few other people who'd be interested in developing these patterns. We would actually start kind of developing some type of a momentum that we can coordinate our actions around. So we need an association. Where do we begin our discussions? We start with ego systems thinking, where we focus on what we can do, or do we focus on ecosystems thinking, where we try and coordinate our efforts in a more, I don't know, strategic way? Thrown quite a lot at you so far. Like maybe you two, if you want to take the microphone, tell me, am I going anywhere in a direction that's useful for you? Do you see this distinction between ego systems and ecosystems? Thanks, Tony. Do we agree that we need an association? I've put some thoughts down on how I think an association could work. I'd be interested to hear from you, based on what I've said so far, in your experience, whether you think we do need a association of space professionals, learning designers, ed techies, whatever you want to call us. Charlene, I was about to say the same thing. Why? And I don't want to underestimate the work that wonderful people are doing already. So I mean, Tony is and his bunch, Emerge Africa, I think are doing wonderful stuff. Thanks, Ria. That's fine. You're welcome to check in on us. If this sounds interesting, I'll take a look at that as well. Irene, I think that's a nice question. Do we want an association or a community of practice? And I think I think it's a hard question to answer either or. What got me inspired around an association was a group called ALT. And that stands for the Association of Learning Technologists. And whilst they have elements that kind of for a community of practice, some of the things that I like about what they're doing is they are also perhaps formalizing what they call learning technologists in the UK sector a little bit more systematically. Darlene, Heltasa is a part that is certainly an interesting thought, and I think would need to bring them into these discussions. What I find interesting about ALT is, I mean, of course, the UK is much bigger than us, is ALT does have other higher education frameworks and portfolios that they align their work with, but they see some of their work as being just a little bit different as the work of academics. And I know lots of you in this room are probably academics. And in a way, academics, I think, have a better career path than third space professionals. Third space professionals, weirdly enough, can very quickly and rise up the ranks if you're technical enough. But there's a kind of ceiling that I experienced, and I don't know how you're any further with that. And I think a body maybe like for ourselves might represent that. I do. Those are just thoughts on the Heltasa thing. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, there is a bit of me dominating the conversation, and I am worried about that. So perhaps maybe I should rush along and not go through the next few slides, and actually ask you to look at this as the proposal. Irene, that's a good question. So I can't generalize that for everyone. For example, at the university I was at, we were definitely seen as support work, and there was either academic or support, and those who were doing support at a very professional level found themselves, in this weird kind of underling status. And I don't think many people who are in the academic track actually know that. But it was quite interesting, because often the things that we would be suggesting would be roundly and ignored, and yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's allowed. I mean, maybe I've got too many rubbish things to say. That's fine. But I did also have a sense of a class structure, and let me give another example. Librarians, for example, have an identity as a librarian, and they have a trajectory in the university where their work is valued and moved forward. And that kind of environment that librarians have, techies, learning designers, and things like that, like us, at the moment, I don't see us having that. Okay, so I'm trying to think of a place where we belong, where the professional interests of third space are protected, where there is a recognition of third space expertise, and where we create a network or a network of networks. Perhaps if we worked with Heltasa and we saw ourselves participating in communities of practice, it would be a network of network, but that takes agency, works towards a just transition. So my heart and brain in the middle, reaching out, hopefully to other people, see if they're interested this idea. And this is where I'm going to start shutting up, ask you guys to start looking at things, because I'm going to ask, what will this association of third space professionals look like? I'm going to put a diagram in the chat, and that will hopefully visually summarize what the association might do, and I've made it editable, so it means you can chat or comment on it. So if you click on that, you'll see it opens a separate Word document, and you will see that it has different parts to it. It has a picture of circle with 1 and our DNA. It then goes to look at the idea of what is the purpose for it, and it then explores what are some of the capacities that are necessary of this organization, and these are places where you can add your 2 cents or 10 cents or $10 worth. It then starts to look at what will the initiative look like. Next slide is what are some of the activities that the group do. Then what will some of its impact be? What are preconditions to join it? And then finally, what resources will be needed in order to make it work? So perhaps in the next let's say 10 minutes, I think we're due to end at 10 past 2. Perhaps you can actually comment on some of these things. So open the presentation that I shared with you. I'll just check that it still works. And I can see a couple of people over here. What are some of the things that we want to do with this partnership? I did use LT instead of third space. I'm just changing that as I go through. I see your comment, and I think, oh, Irene, slides are view only. Shoot, I thought I'd sorted that out. Don't you hate it when someone's so stupid? Stupid. Thanks, Charlie. No, let's. Okay, I've done it. Thank you very much. I'm sorry about that. Thanks, Irene. Yeah, no, it's occupational hazard. Unless there's an occupational hazard of mine. Any comment? I can see that there are real issues concerning the professional standing and influence of colleagues in this cluster of overlapping professions. Yes, there is, and that's tricky territory, and you've put it really very diplomatically. And I mean, I think you're probably better at navigating this than I am. I mean, the nice thing perhaps to remember is I'm a person of no standing in this whole thing, in the sense that I have zero influence. I just have a set of ideas, and they're hopefully easily dismissed if they are rubbish. If they're worth following up, then that's cool. But I don't really want to stand on feet or anything like that. That is not my intention, and I don't think you're trying to say that.
Of course not.
It gets tricky territory, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, something about, I mean, I've seen this here, and I've seen this from trips to AECT conferences in the States, where there is a very strong concern among people in kind of learning design, instructional designer roles, that their work is not being fully recognized for the value that it brings, and that there are power plays and politics which relegate them to kind of subsidiary roles, not necessarily always being listened to in the areas where they have deep expertise.
Oh, that certainly has been my experience, and based on my conversations with instructional designers from around the world, it often is the case. And it seems as if it's often easier for technology to be associated with other agendas than educational agendas or expertise agendas. Thanks, Tony, for the comment. Any ideas on how to resolve something like that, or is this going to, one of the reasons why I'm thinking about an ecology is because it is a different way of thinking of doing things. So it's not trying to threaten the ways things work. It's trying to, I don't know, for a different pattern. Because I think groupings, for example, like Merge, are doing wonderful things for developing capacity within organizations and without. But that work, I'm not sure it is ever being recognized by senior folk in the kind of higher education ecology. I mean, you'd be better to talk about that, Tony. Yes, okay. These are tricky things to talk about. Okay, let's see if there are any further comments on the document. I see you've said professional development. And what I like about the portfolio is it's one step further than professional development, because it actually is, I would say, offering more agency to the person who's doing the portfolio, because what they've got is they've got 5 buckets they've created where you can actually show what you know in those buckets. So the first bucket is a bucket that says, who am I? And you collect artifacts that show that. The second bucket is, what have I done to operationalize technology in wherever my sphere of influence is? So whether it's just an individual classroom, or whether it's a whole institution or a department, it's the operationalization of it. The next question the third bucket is then, how am I using technology with teaching and learning and assessment? All those things that we normally do with teaching in a class. The next bucket they look at is professional development. They ask you then, what are you doing to contribute towards professional development? You collect your artifacts and things there. And then the next bucket is, in you talk about what a specific project is that you're focused on, and you explore that. I don't know if that explains things a little bit better, but it's actually a sense of people collecting artifacts, not creating a showcase, but partially also reflecting on what they've done to show progress, not necessarily perfection. Does that explain it? Responding to a question from Green, which said, is this professional development? Okay. So we've got 5 more minutes left. And the question for me really is this worth taking further? That's the summary slide that you have in front of you, and at the end of a week at the end of a week, and at the end of a heck of a lot of presentations, it's ridiculous to expect me to be thinking everybody has got the mental space to for any found comments, and so I don't want to kill anyone's brains, because I'm sure your brains are already feeling like jelly. So what I really want to know is this worth taking further? We want a professional association for third space professionals, whether you're a learning designer, that's what the Astros is, or EdTechie, or whatever. We carry on with these conversations, or we're not quite ready for this yet? And do we fit into then the existing organizations and fantastic work that's being done in those organizations, and see if we can align with some of our efforts with that?
Thank you, Derek. Yeah, nice ideas, and yeah, it's one of those that makes one want to think a bit about whether we need this association, or is it? I saw other colleagues like Irene was suggesting, can't we have communities of practice, or was it a question whether we need a community of practice instead? And yeah, maybe let's open up the floor for questions, comments, feedback on that. Colleagues, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Irene. I was just thinking about this a couple of hours ago. Do you remember when we were teenagers and we saw all our parents sitting around the pool? Instead of swimming in the pool, they just sat at the side of the pool reading. And we could never understand why. And only when we became parents and we had children did we realize sitting next to the pool and reading is probably the best thing on earth we could be doing, because it was just so peaceful and quiet. I think possibly the reason why I'm interested in a professional association is I've seen the need for it, because I've seen quite a lot of people either burnt out or taken out, and have wondered if there's something we can do about it. But yeah, I think organizations that are running smoothly and well, and people aren't getting people are able to keep their boundaries and able to be listened to and heard. I think sometimes these associations aren't seen as necessary.
I think it's difficult also for me to comment from my side on whether association is necessary or needed. I'm not from South Africa anymore, so that makes it challenging. So are you looking at a local national association, or do you want to look at a broader international association when you say you want to start something like this or consider something like this?
But Irene, I have no specific ideas. It would make sense to me to not reinvent the wheel and associate oneself with a bigger organization. I mean, possibly might be, but one of the dangers of those bigger associations is I get worried about global north issues dominating what I think are very African issues. And things are sometimes quite different. It's hard enough trying to work through this space when you don't have electricity. So, I mean, let me give you a practical example. I've had 2 overseas job adverts. I've had 2 overseas jobs recently, and they've been nice positions, but in both cases, I didn't have electricity. And so I was sitting in the dark trying to answer questions. I mean, I was dealing in candlelight. And from their perspective was, okay, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Maybe they're right. That's fine. I don't mind that. But it did feel like things were a little bit unequal in the playing field. Equally, I do think that they're folk and there's experience and expertise out there that is worth drawing on. So I don't have an answer to it. Well, we're running out of time. We've got 10 past. You need to shut me up. LED lantern should be built in. Yes, Tony. I have my LED lantern here. Actually, this was going to be my my teaching moment, and I was going to put it into over here, but then electricity wasn't working, and so my object diagram failed miserably. Guys, I'm very grateful for your attention, and I'm very grateful for you listening to my waffling. I think that's all that I need to say, but I've appreciated spending time with you, so thank you very much. Cheers, Irene. Thank you. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Vidaz. It's been nice having you here as well. Thank you. Well, I think that's us, is it? We're just down to no, us. Okay.
Thank you so much. Oh, now I'm talking
I see
alone
that.
here with my microphone muted. Thank you so much, Derek. And yeah, it was a wonderful conversation. And yeah, hope to hear what is going to come out of this discussion, these conversations. And yeah, looking forward.
Hi, Donald.